I'm Shikli. Welcome to the program.
Nice being with you.
Thank you for being with us. I want to start by getting your take on what is happening in Iran.
Sure.
So we're days into nationwide, unprecedented protests, perhaps, across Iran. Should Israel be ready to step in, whether that means kinetic or military assistance?
I think the great assistance that we've gave to the Iranian people, the 12 days operations in Rising Lion, and I think what's happening now in Iran is history. I don't think that there's a chance for the regime. It's nothing like what we've seen before. We have seen before Masha Amini's protest. We have seen before the Green Revolution, where Obama, instead of seizing the moment, turned his back on the Iranian people. The Iranians have the full support of the government of Israel with them in their struggle for freedom, for liberty. And we are praying for the people in Iran and wishing for their success in bringing back this country to the people of Iran. The people of Iran are not the enemies of Israel. They never were the enemies of Israel. And I think that these are great days in Iran. And I am sure that the people in Iran will succeed to restore, let's say, the state into the situation that the people are controlling the state and not the dictators, the crazy Ayatollah, who are turned Iran into a miserable country.
Okay, we could be seeing the end of that regime possibly this year. I want to talk about something a bit closer to home then. This is Qatar Gate. You were the first minister to call for an investigation into Qatar Gate. That's allegations that close aides to the Prime Minister took money from Doha to promote a pro-Qatari narrative in the media. You said that matters must be investigated to the very end. Does that mean that the Prime Minister should also be held accountable?
No, I think that people, it's quite a complicated incident in which a deputy of one of the spokesmen, Eli Feldstein, here in Israel, is now well known. I'm not sure who is the audience. It's abroad, so I don't know if they are familiar with Feldstein. Feldstein was not a senior. It was not close to the Prime Minister. The fact that this guy was basically based on a very important research that was an article that was made here on channel i24 by Avishai Greenstein, exposed that he was basically doing PR for Qatar, and with his role close to the Prime, that's something which is very, very bad. And obviously it needs to be investigated. But to say that because of it, it means that Netanyahu is somehow involved. Look, Netanyahu has spoke to Feldstein maybe 10 minutes in his career. I don't think that Netanyahu is related or was aware to the fact. Things needs to be investigated. What Feldstein and i24NEWS were doing for money in the middle of the war, I think this is very, very bad. And as I mentioned, yes, it needs to be investigated, but I wouldn't jump from what Feldstein did to say that it means that the Prime Minister himself is somehow involved. He is not involved with it.
You say the buck stops with Feldstein, but there are other advisors, very close advisors to the Prime Minister, people he did meet with on a regular basis and who were access to very sensitive meetings. Yeah. Is this a vetting failure? Should there have been a better vetting procedure?
Look, I think with the other advisor, we don't have the information regarding. It's not advisor. It's mainly Yonatan Urich. We don't have information regarding Yonatan Urich saying that he was involved in this efforts to promote Qatar during the war. So if there will be information that will prove that this happened, that's a different story. But we don't have any evidence that this actually happened.
You were one of the first ministers to identify Turkey as an enemy state. You've been very forthright about that, and you've even called for the Turkish consulate to be closed.
Absolutely.
Why would that help?
Look, the Middle East is divided into basically two separate Sunni coalitions. One is the radical Islam Sunni coalition, Qatar, Julan is Syria, and Turkey. And the other is the more moderate Bahrain, Morocco, Emirates, Egypt, Jordan, etc. Now, AKP, it's not Turkey, because Turkey is like Iran. Yes, it's not a democracy. The opposition leaders in Turkey are imprisoned. Journalists, hundreds of journalists are in prison. There is zero democracy. And by the way, Erdogan is following the step of the Ayatollah. And he will be brought down by the people of Turkey, not by any foreign forces. But this Muslim Brotherhood ideology, Turkey, Hamas, Jolani, Qatar, this is the greatest threat, not just for the Middle East, but also for Europe and also for America.
But why close the embassy? Why close the consulate? How would that help?
I think we have now, we don't have an active embassy at the moment in Ankara. Our people, because of the threats, because of the incitement, look at what happened just today. They had a conference for solidarity with Palestine, with the most vicious incitement against the state of Israel, comparing Netanyahu to Hitler. We have Erdogan's giving speeches saying that Israel should not exist. We have Erdogan's giving speeches that in God will, like we took Damascus, we're going to take Jerusalem. And one of the lessons of October 7th is pay attention to what your enemies are saying. And if your enemies are saying that you don't have a right to exist, they mean it.
So cut ties, cut diplomatic ties.
I think we should cut ties with Turkey. It's an enemy state. And I think also, and this is one of the things that is very, very important, we have some senior advisors here from the friendly administration of the US. And I think they need to rethink how do they address the radical Islamist ideology of Erdogan and Jolani.
Right. Well, I want to ask you about that because President Trump is very fond of Erdogan. He called him his friend multiple times during those talks with Prime Minister Netanyahu in Florida. We know Turkey is dying to get troops into Gaza. You know, Trump's been very ambiguous about that. They might get the F-35s. What can Israel do if Trump is so pro-Erdogan?
We cannot accept, no matter what, we cannot accept Turkish troops in Gaza. It would be a disaster and a major threat for the state of Israel because it puts the IDF and the Turkish forces, and there might be a chance that because of some misunderstanding or something small that can light a big war, and we don't want it to happen. We are saying to the Turks in Syria, stay out of Syria and specifically southern Syria. And in Gaza, don't even think about getting into Gaza. We cannot accept it, no matter what, no matter what. And again, I'm saying...
Even if that means going against President Trump?
Maybe, look, I have tremendous appreciation for President Trump. He's been, by far, the greatest friend of Israel with the embassy and the Golan Heights and the Abraham Accords and Iran. Really, and fighting anti-Semitism. I have only good things to say about Trump. But I think he's making a mistake with Erdogan. It's a mistake. Erdogan is not a friend of Western civilization. He's playing with America. It's a double game.
And on that note, President Trump has also fully embraced President Al-Sharaa, Al-Jolani, as you called him. He warned Israel not to interfere in Syria. You've called for Al-Sharaa to be eliminated.
Absolutely.
Do you still stand by that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I see Al-Sharaa as he established Al-Qaeda in Syria. He established Al-Qaeda. He didn't change his ideology. We've seen what he was doing with the Alawites, a massacre. Horrific massacre. By the way, the Alawites are our enemies. But still, even for our enemies, I don't imagine and I don't wish for my enemies to be taken to the streets, bark like dogs, executed in the head. This is.
But you think the IDF should, the Mossad should eliminate, should assassinate Al-Sharaa?
Look, I'm saying that is an enemy of the state of Israel. We are seeing young children with weapons, shouting for Al-Quds and for Gaza, just like Syria is becoming exactly like Hamas. Indoctrination, incitement, the massacres of minority, ethnic cleansing of Druze, of Alawites.
But I just want to ask you, do you stand by that comment? You want him to be eliminated?
I think he's an enemy. And, you know, we have a very simple approach to Sinewar, to Nasrallah. I think now for him he wants a Hudna. on his strategic master plan, but the enemies of Giuliani is obvious. We can listen to the march. They had a celebration, a year for the revolution. They had the entire army in the streets shouting for Gaza and for Jerusalem. So look, we can, we can translate from Arabic. We understand the language, and we can see the kids, and we can see schools upon the name of Muhammad Def Sinwar. And it's a Hamas-like Muslim Brotherhood ideology.
Al-Sharaa is no different than Nasrallah or Sinwar or any of these other terrorist leaders.
He's coming from Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Some people think he changed his ideology. I'm saying zero. It's only tactic, and it is very common. If you know Islam, there is a term, taqiyya, hudna. That's what we're seeing. Learn Islam, learn the ideology of Islam. Especially these kind of movements, Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, it's all the same. We know it.
Okay.
And some people who didn't grow up in the neighborhood, they don't get it.
Just really quick, you're the Minister for the Diaspora, but you've had some pretty big bus stops with some of the main Jewish organisations in the UK and France, for example. A lot of people were really upset by you inviting Tommy Robinson to Israel. Jordan Bardella, you've met him as well.
It's also amazing.
Are you worried, though, about the rise of anti-Semitism on the right? Because it is soaring as well. Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, all of these people. It does exist, doesn't it?
Look, every state is a different story. And obviously, currently in America, the greatest threat is Tucker Carlson, who is most likely paid by Qatar for promoting all of the sudden. He became a fan of Sharia law. He became a fan of Hamas, saying that they're just a political movement, and he's against, all these, against Islamophobia, and is becoming an advocate of radical Islam. Now, going back to Europe. In Europe, yes, there was a debate, and we are still in touch with this organization. We're not, we have friendly relationship. I just met last week the leadership of Jewish communities, including Akrif in France, the leadership. And I said, look, it's a disagreement. They're thinking that the main problem is coming from the far right. Now, I'm not saying that the far right is not a problem. We do have a problem with the far right. But the main challenge is radical Islam. Now, pay attention to Australia. You had a father and a son from Pakistan who were indoctrinated and being radicalized and went and killed and murdered 15 people. And you have Albanese and Penny Wong, and none of them could even say the words radical Islam. They are speaking about hate speech. They are speaking about gun control, everything but the reality and the truth.
You think that's a problem in Europe? To some extent,
you have the same problem in Europe. Now, I'm saying, look, we must drop political correctness and speak about the threat that is coming from radical Islam. If you cannot say it, you are not suitable for leadership position. And RN, they are speaking about it straightforward. They have corrected the way when it comes to the Jewish community. We had Marine Le Pen marching with the Jewish community against anti-Semitism after October 7th, speaking against ICC, speaking against Hamas. These are our friends.
Okay. All right. Amichai Shikli, great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.